Hello, welcome. We will begin the presentation shortly. Please follow Kensington on Instagram. Good afternoon or evening. Please join me in welcoming Gurney Williams. Gurney?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 'Tis the Season to Slow Down. My name is Gurney Williams, and I am a former Kensington family member. I'm happy to introduce you to Susie Sarkisian, a longtime staff member of the Kensington. I met her in a small office there at a low time in my life, told her my story. She acted as if she had always known me. She had a spirit I hadn't seen at any other places that I looked. After 45 years of marriage, my wife Linda had changed. She was a beautiful mother of 3. She had worked tirelessly at a fundraiser for a large nonprofit. We loved to laugh together. Alzheimer's disease gradually stole her away from me. At first, we traveled with friends, and then gradually she had trouble speaking, reading, and writing. Airplane travel became impossible. Over 8 years at home with me, she had more and more difficulty taking care of herself. We both had trouble sleeping. In the last months at home, she was often angry. She shouted words that I'd never heard from her. It was dementia's voice. On one dark day, I faced her and I held her shoulder and I said, "Come back, come back." She said, "I can't." Over and over, "I can't." Friends and family told me I couldn't help her anymore. She needed 24/7 care. And then everything changed. On the day she moved in, Susie Sarkisian met us at the door at the Kensington, and within a couple of weeks, my previously depressed, loving wife told my daughter that she loved this place. And for the next 4 years, I got to know Susie as a partner, almost a family member. I was still a caregiver from a distance, but because of the Kensington and Susie, I got my life back. Since Linda's death, I've committed myself to helping dementia caregivers, and today I'm a board member at Caring Kind. That's a nonprofit dedicated to support people like me, often one at a time, coaching them, giving advice. But the most important isn't academic, it is kind and empathetic. Susie is a model of a caregiver's caregiver. That's my story. I can't know the journey of your life, but in this holiday season, I hope you will find peace, healing, and joy. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Susie Sarkisian. Hello there, Susie.
Hello, Gurney. Drop the mic, right? Thank you so much, Gurney, for saying all those wonderful things about me. It's awkward to hear someone speak about you like that, but I'm glad that our paths have crossed and that they continue to cross. So thank you so much for welcoming everyone here today. So, hello, everyone. I'm Susie Sarkisian, and I am the Kensington Family Support Coach. And you have joined us for a webinar called 'Tis the Season to Slow Down, and it's about caregivers. And tonight you're going to meet some caregivers who are really, really cool. But just a little bit of housekeeping. A webinar format means that your cameras are not on. So if you went ahead and got dressed up, you don't have to stay dressed up. If you brushed your hair, you don't have to have your hair brushed. So the webinar format means that you're only going to see us and me throughout the night tonight. So a little bit my story, if you will. I'm from North Carolina. I went to Davidson College. Supposedly, I am the mother of 22-year-old twins, although they seem to want to live far away from me. I'm married. I have a husband who does not live far away from me. He lives here with me. I grew up in a family of social workers, and I always thought the people that I wanted to work with were going to be teenagers. I did work with teenagers and runaways for a long time. And then my world kind of did a pivot when my father was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And our family went into a different mode when that happened. And everyone kind of took on a different role around my dad's dementia. What I found is the person I was most focused on was my mom. I would call and check on her and check and making sure that my mom had gotten a shower that day and that she was able, she was caring for my dad, but I wanted to make sure that she was okay. So at that point, I kind of shifted over into caring in the world of senior living. I landed in the lap of the Kensington 11 years ago when the Kensington and White Plains started. And I work at the White Plains property as the director of family services. I'm so lucky to work for a company that believes that the caregiver is just as, the caregiver's journey is just as important as the resident's journey. I'm grateful that I get to work for the Kensington in this way and to support people. So caregiver, what is a caregiver? Often when you think of a caregiver, a lot of people think a caregiver is the person who's cleaning someone up, or the person who's helping someone eat, or the person who's getting someone dressed. Yes, those are caregivers, but also there's other definitions of caregivers, right? So a caregiver is not just the person who gives the care, it's also the one who cares. So a caregiver can be up close, a caregiver can be from far away, a caregiver can be someone who offers emotional support, financial support, physical support. All of these are caregivers. So the holidays, what ends up happening a lot with caregivers is you become the last person on your list, right? So the caregiver wants to make sure everyone else's needs are met first, and the caregiver ends up last on the list. So we put together this webinar tonight to encourage people to take the holidays as a time to pause and reflect on your journey as a caregiver, and hopefully come away inspired by some of these people you're going to meet, and think of ways that you can add a little something back in to your life that has fallen away as you have become caregivers. So right now I'm going to ask Sheri, Kerri, and Todd to turn your cameras on as I introduce our audience to my three amazing guests. So I'll just give you a quick bio about each person, and they can wave, and it says on their little line below them who they are and where they are, but I'll just tell you a quick little bit about them, and then we're going to jump in. I'm excited for you guys. These are some amazing people that you're about to meet. So, all right. First, I'll start with Kerri. Wave, Kerri. This is Kerri Smith. She is in Greenville, South Carolina. Kerri is the president of a self-help credit union for the state of South Carolina. And about 5 years ago, is that right, Kerri?
Yes.
5 years ago, she and her husband took a leap of faith, and they moved her mother from Alaska into their spare bedroom. So to go from having a mother so far away and into their spare bedroom without really giving it too much forethought, and became caregivers while working full time, and saw the dynamics that plays out on a family and family relationships. Kerri's mother recently passed away in September, yet I felt Kerri has so much to offer. I really wanted to make sure that her voice is heard tonight. So that's Kerri. I'll pop down to Sheri next. Sheri is in Miami, Florida, and her mother is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Sheri is the primary caregiver, long-distance caregiver, if you will, for her mother, who lives in an assisted living with caregivers, with hands-on caregivers. And Sheri's coordinating all of this. Sheri is a PA, highly, a medical person who thought she was, because she was a medical person, probably thought, hey, I got this, only to learn that there's a lot more to caregiving than knowing just the medical part, or only the medical part. And my friend Todd, that's Todd. Todd moved his wife into the Kensington. How many months ago, Todd?
It was in August.
In August. So recently.
Yes.
Todd's wife, Isabel, was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at age 50. I always forget this. 50 what?
7.
At age 57.
Mhm.
So she's quite young. And I'm sure that when Todd and Isabel got married, this picture was never anything in anyone's mind that you would still be married to someone and you're living separately because dementia. It's like the story that Gurney just told. I'm sure you could relate to a lot of what Gurney was saying about his wife. Todd has done an amazing job of building relationships and caring for his wife and reaching this point. So I wanted to make sure that we all get to hear from him. So those are my 3 guests. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I think I'm on schedule. Yes. Okay, good. So the first question that I have for everyone, I want y'all to go back to the day that you realized you were a caregiver. So nobody is like, oh, wait, I can't wait to be a caregiver. So go back to the day that you kind of realized, oh my gosh, I am a caregiver. Kerri, you've got a big old smile on your face. Why don't you tell your story of when it hit you?
Oh my goodness. And it was like a ton of bricks kind of hit you. It was about 5 years ago. My sister and her husband lived in Alaska and they were ready to move to the lower 48. And my mom was living in Alaska independently in an apartment and had been doing fairly well with not a lot of issues. But what we didn't realize is what dementia does for folks in that physical move, planes and a new environment. Once she got here, we realized that she was really not capable of taking care of all of her needs on her own anymore. Because our plan had been, we'd get her here, get all of her, Medicare and all that, move down to South Carolina. We would get her another independent apartment, and then we could just move forward. But we learned relatively quickly that that the best laid plans were not going to work out for us, and that for her to be with us was probably the best for her and also for us as we try to navigate getting her acclimated back to South Carolina.
Was there a moment where you went, oh my gosh, I took on more than I should have or could have, or what was I thinking?
Yes, of course, there's that when you live with someone, you really see the things that you take for granted, you know, small things around, you know, brushing teeth or making sure that they can even fix themselves a snack, or remembering where you keep the, you know, the food and things like that. And we weren't very long in, you know, first few weeks of her being here, and really realized that for her, that transition was much harder than we thought it was going to be.
So a couple weeks in, you get your mom all the way out from Alaska. Here she is in your house. You're thinking you don't even have to rearrange anything because you're going to move on to the next place. And that's not how it was going to happen. So I can imagine that moment, those days when it really hit you that, whoa, what, here we go. And so you're about rolling up your sleeves and you and your husband becoming a team. Right.
Absolutely. And things like even a bathtub instead of a shower. So we had to start making arrangements to remodel the bathroom because she was not capable of stepping into a bathtub to take a shower. So just really looking at, you know, would her rollator actually make it into the bathroom, because it wasn't a large bathroom. So it was just almost an avalanche of emotion and
Oh, what a great word. All right. So Kerri's moment of realization is summed up in that word, felt like an avalanche. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. How about you, Todd? When did it hit you that you're not you're still a spouse, but that you're a caregiver spouse? And the roles are reversed here, right? Often we think of the women taking care of a man, but when did it hit you?
It still is hitting me. It's right here. For us, it was a little different than Kerri, in the sense that when Isabel knows, I didn't really understand at the time what was going to be needed. I just knew I'd be there, but I didn't know what it meant. I'll do anything that was needed. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those slow motion action, movies where things start to evolve, you react to it, life is going on, you're working, things are happening. So you're just dealing with everything that goes on. I think the first time it really, really hit me is for my job. I was before the pandemic, I would travel quite often. And I realized I needed to make Isabel the food for every day that I was going to be gone. I thought it was just practically easier for her. So I actually had all these plates in the refrigerator labeled. One was dinner, one was lunch, one was this, and one was that. And when I got onto the plane and started to realize, I realized that, is my wife going to be able to eat when I'm not home? Or is, something like that. And it kind of struck me then that I'm really more than just a husband anymore.
Wow. I haven't heard that story. That's really powerful. Wow. She's lucky to have you. Yeah, I forgot to say what Todd does for a living. He's a vice president or I don't know what you are. He's something very important in a big hamburger chain. So thank you for that. So Sheri, take us to that moment when you realized, hold on, I'm a caregiver.
Well, my parents were in their 80s and they were limping along, caring for each other. And about 8 years ago, during a family vacation, my mother fell down and broke her shoulder. And unfortunately, that meant that they no longer had a driver, even though she had early dementia. My father had vision loss from glaucoma. So they kind of made a driving team. He would tell her where to go and she was the driver. And so all of a sudden I realized, I can't go home and leave them like this. So my family left and went home, and I stayed to help her through her physical therapy with the shoulder. But after living with them for a couple of weeks, it became glaringly obvious that they needed a lot more help, that they had both been helping each other or covering for each other, however you look at it. And their disease processes were much more advanced than I had realized. So we all sat down as a family, and they made the decision that it was time for them to move to a retirement community. And so we helped them move. My brother and I helped them organize that and help them move. And so I thought, okay, that's done. Everything is okay. But no, that's just the beginning. Because even though they're in that sort of community, because their needs were so drastically different and constantly changing, I found that I needed to be there a lot just to keep assessing their situations and changing and upgrading their care. And it just took a lot more than I realized. So it was a multi-step process, and it seemed like a month brought a little bit more of a need to really be a hands-on caregiver. Luckily, I was in a position where I could take a leave of absence from my job, which was followed by an early retirement, so that I could be present a lot to get all that set up. But that's how it happened.
Yeah, and you know what it sounds like for all three of y'all? You remember that Claritin commercial where they pull the film off and it becomes really clear? I don't know if you've seen that commercial. It almost sounds like that. Like all three of y'all had parents, spouse that were kind of limping along, to use your words. And then all of a sudden there was a moment of, whoa, this is bigger than I thought. You know, when Todd's getting on the airplane and when Kerri's realizing the avalanche of redoing her home, and Sheri's going, I can't leave right now. So this moment or this time frame when all you all realize I'm a caregiver, and none of you ran away from the fire, you all ran into the fire, which is part of why I picked you tonight, to be people that others can learn from. So that answers the question, how did I get here? But my next question to each of you is, so, okay, poof, you're a caregiver, but something had to give, right? We all live full lives. So something had to give. You had to stop doing something in order to make room for this. And I'd like for you to, just in this section, just talk about what it is that maybe consciously or maybe not consciously, you kind of stopped doing that was in your life prior. Does anybody want to go first? Todd, we'll start with you. I pick on you.
Yes, you do, but it's quite all right. I have a gift of gab as well. There are, very similar to becoming the more enhanced caregiver, you also start to, in the opposite way, lose things that you like, you enjoy, you would like to do. It's never something that happens all of a sudden, but it evolves. As Sheri was saying, things start to become quite clear at some points. And for me, it was more in reference to, no longer did Isabel and I go out as a couple anymore. She couldn't. Too much. A restaurant was too much. A concert was too much now, or it was just anything by which we might have done something together. And then there were things that I used to do alone. I enjoyed running for years, and then I had a injury and wanted to get back to it. But then all of my best laid plans, kind of what Kerri was saying, was that were all kind of ripped apart because I wanted to run, but I didn't have the time now. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to do it.
There was no possible way you were going to fit running into your day when you were caring for her, right?
No, There was
No.
none whatsoever. And that goes for many different things, whether it was anything you wanted to do or anything you were doing.
So
They
what are
start-
some other things off the top of your head that just,
Well, I've
seem to-
always picked up the piano from time to time. And it was one of the things I wanted to do again, especially now that we have the empty house, the empty nest syndrome. Now we're alone, so we all had plenty of time. But yet that piano, like many of them, become dust collectors and places to put the laundry, things of that nature. Traveling. We wanted to travel so much, but the last trip that I could do with Isabel, major trip, was really to London and Paris. And she tried a trip on her own with her sister, but just never worked. And kind of like what Gurney was saying before the introduction, you have to start scaling that back. And we were never able to get to the traveling piece that we had always wanted to, or that I had always wanted to as well.
so here you are traveling for work and you had the realization, I'm not sure she's going to eat the meals I've labeled Sunday breakfast or whatever. And then you're realizing there's certain things I'm not doing anymore. What about your job? Did
Well-
you reached a point where you had to stop your job, right?
Well, that was the other thing, yes. And there's a saying in the Alzheimer's community where you say, you'll know when you know what you have to do. And I always hated that expression because I always wanted to know, please tell me when I have to do it and I'll be prepared. Well, unfortunately for all of us, you won't know, but you will know when it comes time. It's exasperating, it's painful, but you'll know. And at some point, it was clear to me, I could no longer do the job that I was being employed to do at the level that I wanted to do it and still care for Isabel. So I had asked for a leave of absence. They've been incredibly gracious. They not only allowed me a year off and made sure that I was compensated properly throughout. So I've been very, very fortunate. But yeah, I could not do a job and be a caregiver at the same time. There was no way.
Yeah. That's a great segue into our superhero over here on the left, who was able to be a caregiver and a full-time worker. Kerri, tell us about some things. I mean, yes, you kept a lot of balls juggling in the air between you and your husband and your mom living there. Her mom's name is Willie. I love that. But tell us about what you realized you didn't have room for it in your life.
Well, and this is where there's this time creep because it where the realization that I needed that she needed to stay with us, it was an avalanche. This particular part of the journey was very much a creep because I was always I've always started my day with journaling, meditation, always a study of some sort because it got me grounded for the day. Well, once I became the caregiver, my mornings were making sure that my mom's meals were ready, her medicine was ready for her, and when she got up, that her breakfast was there waiting on her. And so that left. And then for me, because it was such a grounding event of my day, it did bleed into other parts of my life, and having to work full time. We always enjoyed, my husband and I enjoyed going out to dinner with folks, and that ended. It just slowly died away because evening meal was the time of day I got to spend with my mom. And I didn't want to miss that because if we weren't there, and she wouldn't go with us out, she became very much more comfortable staying in familiar surroundings. So she wouldn't go with us out.
Even if you invited her out, she would decline.
Yes. And she just did not feel comfortable leaving the house. And so, you know, we always did a lot of fundraisers. My husband and I are very big in the car community, and we raise money for lots of charities by organizing car shows. And those had to go by the wayside because I didn't have that bandwidth to do it. And one thing I would caution folks that if you are a caregiver, start paying attention to those things. Because it's easy to lose yourself in all of this, because you are so focused on just the very basic needs, you know, food, shower, you know, those kinds of things of your loved one. So it's easy to let those things go. And then, you know, the friendships and the relationships can also die away at those times as well. Because folks don't know how to support you if you're not sharing with them what is going on with your life. And where I saw it as a burden to share, you know, I don't want other people to have to feel the same way I do. I really was not giving my friends and other family the opportunity to support me.
So well said. She gave examples of journaling, meditation, going out to dinner, for car shows, friendships, all these things that used to make up Kerri, pre-Willie in the house Kerri, slowly kind of fell off, right?
Yeah.
Great, great, awesome. So Sheri, tell us about which things you realize now that just got squeezed out. I know you already mentioned taking a leave from your job. So like Todd, your full-time job, your profession got put on the back burner, right?
Absolutely. And I actually ended up retiring earlier than I think I would have. I really equate parent caregiving to motherhood. The two are so similar. When all of a sudden you find yourself in that position, their needs move to the forefront and yours take a back seat. So if you've been a mother, you've had some practice at that. So it kind of comes naturally, but there are other things, you know, there's so many little things, like you said. I really found that I was going back and forth so often between Charlotte and Miami that I found that I had to give up anything at home that required a time-sensitive commitment, such as volunteer or leadership roles in various civic organizations, local politics, programs at my church, my women's club, the garden club, the sailing club, anything that required a commitment from me. I just didn't like canceling at the last minute. So I found that I just started dropping out of those things because I didn't want to have to be that person that said I was going to do it and then didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are just so many little things that go by the wayside that you really, I didn't even realize it until you asked me that question. And I started thinking about all the things that I've kind of shuffled off my plate.
Well, also, didn't you say that you, again, like God, that travel became a big, it was much harder to plan for?
Really making plans, because as soon as I planned a trip, that would be a time when a caregiver would announce they were going on vacation and my presence was needed. So it didn't take but one or two episodes of, you know, spending money on a trip that I then had to cancel before I learned that it's just best not to do that right now. It's best to plan your trip to Charlotte and let that be the trip. And unfortunately, when your children live all over the United States, that's hard sometimes. And there have been many, I've learned to buy insurance when I buy plane flights, because then you can change your flight without paying the fee. So
that's good advice, Sheri. That's really good advice. Yeah. So you guys have done a great job of answering, this part. We started with, how did I get here? How did I become a caregiver? And now it's like, okay, I'm a caregiver. Something had to give. And, and Todd talked about the slow motion unrolling, but things like piano and running and his career, those and travel as well. That was what had to give for Todd. And Kerri spoke so beautifully about, it really hit me when you said the part about friendships. We don't often think about the impact that has on your friendships with the people that matter to you in life. And you're right, a lot of times people don't know how to be. They don't know, you don't want to burden them. They don't want to ask too much, or maybe they don't want to hear, but that I picture that here's your long work day, and then your dinner becomes the time at home with mom and your husband. And it used to be maybe going out to eat. And Willie says, no, I'm not going out to eat. And Sheri with Lola, I mean, it's a lot of similar things here, right? You guys are learning, she talked about being unable to make plans and getting trip insurance, so that knowing that plans might fall to the wayside. And again, another career put on hold as you stepped into your caregiving career, if you will. So then here comes the drum roll up to the aha moment. So you were a caregiver, or you are a caregiver, something had to give. And then the question I ask now is, how do you bring some of those things back? How do you create pockets where those things became back in your life and the pendulum swung just a little bit more? It's not all about Lola or Willie or Isabel. That how did you create some pockets where you brought some things back in? And just to switch it up, I'll start with Sheri. How have you brought some of those things back in your life?
For me, it's been all about building a team, because no, you can't do it yourself. No one can do all of that yourself. You're managing someone's life and all the little details in their life. And you can't do that alone. It really takes a team. Luckily,
how did you build a team?
Well,
how did you do that?
I'm sorry. Luckily, my mother's doctor has a practice specializing in dementia care that also gives a great deal of attention to the care of the caregivers. And they provide helpful coaching along with education and support. And I really use that as a model to help set up a team. And by that, I mean just pulling a number of people in to help me. My brother and his wife helped me tremendously. I have multiple family members that will go and visit with my mother in my absence and report back to me. I have several caregivers. I've been able to work out a caregiving team through our home health care service, where she consistently has the same people. And I treat them like royalty. They have become my family members, and I take care of them. I make sure I stock the kitchen with their favorite snacks and coffees, and we talk on a daily basis. I inquire about their families. They really become family members, and I let them know how much we appreciate that. And when you can put together a good team like that, then you don't have to feel like you need to be there all the time. You can step away and take a break and not have that on your mind 24/7. And it's made a tremendous difference.
That's so good, because I know Sheri has one brother. So some people might say, well, I don't have a big family. She has one brother. So she has built her team from caregivers and built those relationships with those caregivers and asked them about their families. I love that. That's beautiful. But she's built a team on the ground 1,000 miles away from where she is right now, and been fearless about asking people to come in and help or to just check in. That's great. That's great. I love hearing that you've done that. So with building a team, what has that allowed you to do now?
Well, it's given me a little bit of breathing room. If nothing else, just to have the breathing room, just to have peace of mind that I can go back home and relax and recharge and then come back in a month and hit the deck running again. But you know, this is a marathon. This has been going on for 8 years now. So, you know, the team it's especially important when you're running a marathon, as you know. But I have not gone back to work, but that's by my choice. But it has given me some breathing room. I haven't gone to Europe yet, but I'm blaming COVID for that. I don't blame my mother for that. But I do make regular visits around the country to see my children, and so it's worked out.
So
It has-
you're able to travel now some.
a little bit, and at the same time, it also gave me. I paused and I took a look at all the different things I was doing in my life, and I thought, well, maybe I was a little overcrowded. Maybe I don't need to add all those things back. Maybe I can just add back a couple of key things. And so that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. Just gradually adding a few things here or there, but not overloading my plate. And that's helped me to just be generally more relaxed and enjoy retirement a little bit.
Okay, that's great. Team builder, Team Lola. Kerri, tell us how you've created, or how you did create pockets, because I love what you did too.
Well, for me, it was getting a little tough, you know, and my sister and I, we would tag team for travel. She would come and have to stay with mom while I traveled. We could never travel together, that kind of thing. But at that point, it was starting to feel, there was a lot of emotions. I mean, because we were worried about mom, but she was trying to protect me and I was trying to protect her. And so I had, was introduced to a coach, and that was the turning point for me, because my sister and I both, while we were in this together, there was a lot of emotions. So having and getting a coach that I could share everything with, and this is and what was really eye-opening for me was when she says, you are so good at delegating and building teams in your professional life. Why don't you apply that to this situation? Because it had not occurred to me. And to have somebody that isn't wrapped up in that emotion, and also a person that can give you the honest truth. And Sheri, when you talked about how it's a lot like motherhood, I think the differing part of that is with your children, it's very acceptable to ask for help. Like getting a babysitter to come in and take care of the kids so you and your husband can go for a date night, that kind of thing. When it's your parent, the other thing too is it is a realization that today is probably going to be the best day that you have. Because you don't know when that next decline is going to happen. I know in our journey, there was a lot of plateaus, and then it was a steep cliff. And then we had a new plateau that we had to deal with. And I think that building the team, and we called her, you know, it was Team Willie. So it was, and I did ask friends to help out, as well as family. But it was the coach that gave me the permission to ask for help. I hope everyone has that individual in their lives that can be honest. And really, sometimes it's just holding a mirror up and saying, hey, did you forget who you are and what your skills are? And I think that was the biggest thing I learned, because once they said that to me, I got up 30 minutes earlier so that I could do my study, do my meditation, and be able to set my day. And I made that a priority. So what, and I'm a lot like Sheri as well. I haven't added everything back in yet, and my mom passed in September, but that whole idea of having a team has really resonated, and I don't think I'll ever walk away from that mindset of having a team that you work on and with through life, period.
Well, and the 30 minutes earlier part, I remember the first time when we were practicing this and you told us that, oh my gosh, who wants to get up 30 minutes earlier? Nobody does. But you realized that that meant so much to you to be able to get that in. And that was while you were actively caregiving, right?
Yes.
You did that?
Yeah. Yeah. The last 6 months, I was able to add that back in, and it changed my whole day. And that little bit, that 30 minutes was well worth it. Well,
Were you able
worth it.
were you able to start going out to eat again while your mother was still living with you ever?
Yes.
you-
Yes, we did. Just asking for friends to come by to, or my brother that lives here, ask him to bring dinner in for her, things
Okay.
like that. So, that it was, and a good friend of ours would come and have dinner with her. So, it wasn't as much as we were doing prior, but we were at least able to add that back in, and be
Excellent.
able to spend some time together.
So it's about intention too, right? Planning
Yes.
it. Todd, tell us your running story. You're talking to
I
a
will.
runner.
Well, I will, but I think one point that Kerri and Sheri, and I think many of us going through, and I know it's kind of weird to say journey, but it really truly is, or trying to get through life with this, is trying to seek out help from others, whether it be a team you build, whether it be a coach. In my case, similar to Kerri, when I was at my wit's end and I knew I could no longer, with all the support groups I was part of and everything else, I was hitting a wall. And I did look and I got a therapist or a life coach or whatever moniker you want to use. And that helped, if nothing else besides the mirror, and make sure that I remembered to look in the mirror. It was also giving me I guess, the allowance to be human and to know that what you do on a daily basis is probably Herculean in many respects.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the middle of it, it's never enough. So when Isabel, then eventually we had to make the decision to come into the Kensington. And the first month and a half, 2 months were just absolutely excruciating for me. Not for her, she was acclimating well, but for me, it was excruciating because it's, first time I've ever been without her for over 33 years. But I did something to try to start in the same way that the caregiving responsibilities came on, evolved, and they came on almost like building in a crescendo. I'm trying to then go the other side, is trying to do things in small little ways, little bit at a time. And so I went out to go buy sneakers. And it's weird to say that such a small gesture, really, was it the gesture that made the difference, the thoughts leading up to it, the action of completing it, probably all of that together. But it was a kind of sign that I was able to get some great sneakers. They felt amazing. And I decided from then on, I was going to go out and start to recover, I think, those marathon days. And not the marathon Sheri's talking about, the actual running marathon. And see if I can recover there, and just taking little steps and giving myself, we talk about giving others grace, but oftentimes as caregivers, you don't give yourself grace. So just giving yourself the latitude and the grace to get through it today, do one thing, accomplish it, see how that feels. It may work for a while. You'll have some setbacks, but at least try it. And then, so now I don't look at the piano anymore. I've dusted it already. The clothes are off of it, and I actually playing it now. So it's little things like that, one step at a time. I'm not conquering the world anymore. I think we all
Right.
are trying to gauge what we need to do, but I am making a big decision. I am going back to work starting in January, all
Okay.
in my process of trying to get back parts of my life that was me, and still hold to the parts of life with Isabel that we still do together, even though it's different now.
You guys are so awesome. I mean, my wish for the people that are watching this, that are caregivers that can connect with something you're saying is, like you all said, you weren't even quite aware that you had stopped doing certain things. I mean, you were aware you had quit your jobs or stopped your jobs, obviously, but there were some things you weren't even quite aware that you had stopped doing. And my wish for everyone participating in this tonight is that they can kind of make a little list of what have I stopped, and what is a creative way to bring it back in. Todd bought those running shoes and he took the clothes off the piano. and Kerri setting her alarm 30 minutes earlier, and Sheri making travel plans. I mean, they found ways to bring some of these things back in. It's never going to be like it was before, but so we're getting close on time, and I just have some questions. We have a Q&A section here, and if anybody wants to send in a question, I will throw it out there. All right, hold on just a second. Okay. All right, so I have a question here. It's for Kerri, and someone says, my mother lives with me and there are days I just can't take it anymore. Do you have any tips for giving perspective?
I think probably my biggest suggestion around that is to realize that you almost have to mourn the mom that you had to be able to care for the mom that you have now. And there were times where, especially with dementia, the repeating and not remembering, and I had to stop and say, this is not it there, because sometimes it feels like that they're accusatory or they should know better, and the realization is they don't. And that your mom would not do things to intentionally hurt you, but sometimes it felt that way. So I had to stop taking things personally as the daughter, because there are times in your life where it gets overwhelming and you need your mom. You need somebody to give you, to serve in that, wisdom role to help you. And so you have to understand that role may have changed, at least for periods of time. Because like I said, you'll get to a plateau and it may not feel that way all the time, but there's going to be moments, and just understand that it's not personal to you, and that history of your mom is different now.
Well, what you said at the beginning, mourning the mother you had so that you can love the mother you have now. And I'm sure Todd can relate to, I'm sure all of you can relate to that there's that, if you're stuck in the morning, you're not going to be able to be there for them, or you might get angry or frustrated or reactive, I guess. Does anyone else want to answer that question? Just what do you do in moments when you want to pull your hair out? How do you get perspective or not?
I think education is really key. I think being educated about the disease process, that really helped me to understand that this is normal for that disease. The behavior is normal. and it's not anything that they can do anything about. And you have to kind of learn how to respond to that. But my motto is that it's better to be kind than to be right. Because when you respond to behavior in a defensive sort of way, it just sets up a dynamic that never works between mother and daughter. So I'm just agreeable, and because it doesn't really matter if I'm right or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in her world. It doesn't matter in my world. But when I say that to myself over and over again, it allows me to just let the comments or whatever just roll right off my back, and we'll move on to the next thing.
So finding a motto, that's great. I mean, and everyone in the world. I mean, if you thought about something that will get through those hair pulling moments, it's better to be kind than to be right. That's what gets you through those times. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Todd, do you have any thoughts on those crescendos? What gets you through those?
Well, one of the biggest things, and I think Kerri kind of said it, was that we interpret what they're doing in some personal way. And we kind of react to it in a personal way. And then, as Sheri was saying, we all try to learn about the disease as much as we can. What I found, though, is that no matter how much learning I did, I still reacted in my brain. I still was concerned about things in my brain. And putting yourself in their position would have probably helped a lot, so that, whatever hair that I still have, I'll keep a little bit longer. But I was stressing over things that didn't even matter, but it mattered to me. It mattered, like I was afraid for Isabel. But when we were placed in a situation by which she would react to it, and I said, "Oh, I'm gritting my teeth and holding on. Okay, wait for it," and it just never comes. It was because it was me all along, supposing and making conjectures of what will happen, when, quite frankly, I wasn't using my mind to be in Isabel's shoes.
That's great. We're getting to the end. I just got a lovely message that I want the three of you to just listen to, from an anonymous attendee who said, "There is so much wisdom in this room, and I greatly appreciate the honesty. Todd, Sheri, and Kerri, you inspiring human beings." So that's my mic drop. That's it. I mean, you guys, I hope that people who watch this will walk away inspired. And I thank you for agreeing to share your story so openly. And thank you for everybody who joined us tonight. And that's a wrap.
Thank you all.
Thank you.